Number 33, Hotel in Osaka, by Anonymous. Hey, killer. I heard you're a Japanophile, so I figured you might appreciate the only ghost experience I have ever had. About 10 years ago, I was studying in Japan as part of a study abroad program. In order to get my honors degree in Japanese language, I had to spend 1 year studying at a sister university in Tokyo. While I was there, I wanted to travel around Japan as much as possible and really experience what the country is like. I was particularly fond of Osaka, and when I was visiting there, I decided to spend an extra day there. I found this quaint little hotel and I got myself a room. I know a lot of people assume that all Japanese hotel rooms are tiny, but while the tiny ones do exist, they do also have plenty that are just like American hotel rooms. This hotel only had one room available, and it was a double. I was pretty tired, so I went ahead and took it. I'm not sure if I fell all the way asleep or not. I was laying in bed, and I at least lost track of time. Something jolted me awake. I wasn't really sure what it was at first, but I figured it might have just been a noise in the hallway. I closed my eyes, and then I thought I heard a very weak voice say, "Ima nanchi desu ka?" This is Japanese for, "What time is it now?" My eyes shot open, and I quickly sat up in the bed. I scanned the room. It was very dark. My heart jumped in my chest when I saw a shadow of a human figure sitting cross-legged on the other bed. It seemed to be looking in my direction. I then heard it very clearly repeat those words, "Ima nanchi desu ka?" Any other time I would have probably ran out of the room. However, I had to pass by the second bed in order to do that. I was too scared really to do anything, though. Once again, the shadow asked me, "Ima nanchi desu ka?" My eyes quickly flashed over to the clock on the nightstand. It was 2 a.m., so I said back in a shaky voice, "Gozen niji desu." The figure tilted its head at an ungodly angle until its head was resting on its shoulder. It then said, "Domo sumimasen," which is one of the ways in Japanese to say thank you, and disappeared. I didn't really sleep that night. I didn't mention it to the hotel clerk either. If something had happened in that room, I didn't want to know what it was. Number 34, My Bath, by Anonymous. My uncle lived in a fishing village in Hokkaido. I had never been to his house before, but when I was 13, he needed some help with his boat. Fishing villages in Hokkaido have been seriously diminishing over the years. While at one point the villages were huge, they've been slowly disappearing. I expressed interest in helping my uncle out, so my family sent me to stay with him for a while. I will not mention the name of the village because I choose to keep this story anonymous. My family is from Tokyo, so going to a small village in Hokkaido was very strange for me. But it was very nice as well. My uncle lived in a very old house, but it was very nice. I had been staying with my uncle for about a week and really working hard. I was learning a lot about what it takes to be a fisherman in Hokkaido. My uncle tended to drink a bit too much sake when he was fishing, so usually by the time he got home, he would just pass out on the couch. Me, I had to take a bath every evening. On this night, I drew my bath. I then went into my room to let the water cool down just a little bit. When I came back into the bathroom, I was shocked when I looked down into the bathtub. I saw a young boy, maybe 6 years old, floating underneath the water. His eyes were open, and I saw them move. They looked over at me. I reached into the water to grab the boy and pull him out of the water. But when I tried to grab him, he was suddenly gone. I was very scared. My uncle was too drunk to wake up, so I waited until the following day to ask him about it. He was very upset. I mean sad, not angry. Apparently, he had seen the ghost before. The family he had purchased the house from had sold it because their son had drowned in the bathtub, and they couldn't bear to live in the house any longer. Number 35. Ghost Family Encounter by Poetry Lounge. This happened to me when I was 9 years old. I was spending the summer in Jamaica with my grandmother. As I reached her yard, her many dogs, about 8, came up to us. The dogs started to wag their tails to me. My grandma told me the dogs only bark at the sight of strangers or weird things they see. Luckily, I was not a stranger to them. My grandmother lived in a big house. She had a large field or gully, and near the gully or in her backyard were 2 graves of our family relatives. Now, in the islands, it's not uncommon to have the graves of your ancestors in your yard. I remember my grandmother would always warn me not to go into the grave area, at least unprotected because of what I thought then, her irrational fear of ghosts. What did she mean by unprotected? Without family members or friends with me? I would go near the graves a lot, despite her warnings. A few days passed by, and she showed me a weird white handkerchief that she had. I looked at the odd apparatus. It had the symbol of a man with multiple arms and legs. Around it, a creepy-looking circle, and other symbols I could not recognize. My grandmother went on to explain to me that she used that same handkerchief for protection, and usually carried it in her purse with her when she went out to travel. I stared at the object. Then I left to play outside, and being the youngest and only female child amongst her sons, I left the house out of boredom and curiosity. I went out to the graves this particular day, and went to play in the grass near them. In the distance, I saw some of the dogs, and I looked at them happily, but they didn't look back at me. They started growling and barking in the direction behind me. I turned around, but there wasn't anybody there, nor had anyone followed me to the grave. Feeling creeped out, I ran out of the fields. The dogs didn't chase me, however. The next day I told my grandma what happened. She just said I shouldn't go unprotected. Number 36. The Hotel Room by Raine. I work for a major airline in the USA as a flight attendant. I have traveled all over the world and have stayed in countless hotel rooms over the last almost 20 years and never felt scared except for one. I had been flying a little over a year and had a layover in Costa Rica for the first time. We had 4 flight attendants, and 2 of them were Spanish speakers who only work certain flights to Spanish-speaking countries that we fly to. These flight attendants had flown there many times and stayed at the same hotel. We sign a sheet next to a room number at the hotel desk and grab a key. Usually, the first person just signs their name on the first line, and so on in order, and take the corresponding room key. I was the last to sign in, and noticed they had skipped a line right in the middle, which I thought was weird, but not enough to mention. I signed the line left over, and took the room key. It was pretty late, and we had an early flight in the morning. This hotel, by the way, was an older, very nice hotel, probably a 4 or 5 star, I'm guessing. I got to my room and got ready for bed and set my alarm. I turned off the lights and laid down. The minute I turned the lights off, I heard the doors to the clothing armoire that was in the room fly open with a bang. I was frozen in fear. I couldn't move. I thought to myself, someone was hiding in there and is going to kill me now. I lay there for what seemed like 10 minutes, but was probably seconds, and got the nerve to switch the light on. I peered around the corner, and the door to the room was still locked. I looked in the bathroom, and inside the armoire, there was no one in the room. I closed the heavy wooden doors to the armoire, and tried to rationalize that maybe there was an air vent that made the doors fly open, but there was no explanation. I was tired, and got back in bed, and turned off the lights again. I started hearing knocks on the wall behind my head, and it seemed to rotate to other walls. I thought to myself that it was just the neighbors, and the walls were thin, but it was so loud and annoying. I then heard the crackling sound of paper, like someone was sitting in the corner of my room, wadding up paper in a ball. I know that feeling they say in these paranormal experiences, that you feel like someone is watching you. I felt like someone was right next to me, staring at me, but I couldn't see anyone. I flipped the light on and glanced around, and the noises stopped. The last thing to happen was the scariest. I turned the light out for the final time and heard a creak of the mattress on my bed, and felt an indentation as if someone sat down on the bed. I jumped up, heart racing, and turned on the lights. I started praying. I was so scared, but didn't leave the room. I thought, where can I go? Go down to the lobby and tell the front desk there's a ghost in my room? I turned on the TV and all the lights and waited for morning. I got dressed in the morning and met my co-workers downstairs. One of them asked me, "How did you sleep?" I told them not good. I kept hearing noises. Her eyes got wide and she said, "I'm so sorry. We thought since you didn't know the room was haunted, you might not notice." We definitely didn't want to stay in that room because we've had experiences. The hotel always gives us that room. I tried to avoid that layover as much as I could from then on. The hotel tried to give me that room again a year later, and I told them I'd rather sleep in the lobby. They said, "What's wrong with the room?" and that there were no ghosts. However, he admitted that he was getting tired of flight attendants making up stuff about that room. So evidently, there had been lots of people complaining. And the pilot finally yelled at him and said regardless of why she can't sleep in there, and you need to give her another room. He gave me another room. But I was prepared to make one of the couches in the lobby area my bed for the night, had he not. Number 37. The Children Playing by Kitten92. I was 19, and I had just got kicked out of my boyfriend's grandmother's house. I was 8 months pregnant, and didn't know where I was going to go. My boyfriend, let's call him Chris. Chris's father told us about a rental place that he had. He told us that it wasn't much, but that if we could get a work crew together, we could fix it up. He would rent it to us for a very small price. When we got there, it was a small cottage-style house. It would have been cute if it wasn't abandoned. There was not a kitchen or a bathroom. Well, neither were usable anyway. We didn't have much of a choice, so we took it. We put our bed in the living room. Chris helped his father put in the wood-burning stove, and I helped everyone move our stuff to the nearest bedroom. We later went to sleep, and everything seemed like it was starting to get better. We went about our normal routines for the next week or so. One night I was doing dishes, and I felt like someone was watching me. I looked around and I didn't see anyone, so I just finished up the dishes. Later that night we went to bed. I still felt like someone was watching me. I had Chris look through the house and even outside around the house. He came back in, annoyed, and told me there wasn't anything inside or out. He got back into bed and turned over facing the wall. Because I was pregnant, I slept on the outside of the bed. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling, and tried to get some sleep. I guess I must have dozed over, because I woke up to children laughing and playing. I didn't find it odd because we lived across the street from a park. I checked the phone to see the time, and I realized that it was 2:30 in the morning. I got up and looked outside. The park was empty. Thinking that it was just my pregnant brain playing tricks on me, I lay back down and tried to go back to sleep. I was almost asleep when I heard two little girls giggling, but this time it was different. The sounds were coming from inside the house this time. I tried to ignore it, but now a little freaked out. I then heard the unmistakable sound of little bare feet running around. I kept my eyes closed, but scared of what was going on. I heard the feet coming closer. They only stopped when they were right beside me. I felt a very small and cold hand touch my face. Then I heard a small girl's voice at the foot of the bed. "Shh, Mommy's sleeping." And with that, I heard their feet run to the back bedroom, and I heard a door slam. I was completely freaked out by this point. There were not any doors on the bedrooms. I jumped up and woke Chris up. I told him what happened, and he told me I was just imagining things. He finally calmed me down after a few hours, and we even switched sides of the bed. The next day, I made it clear that I was not staying another night in the house, and I didn't. Number 38. A House I Used to Live In, by RJ. I have a rather odd story concerning the house in which I used to live. There was a lot of odd activity, phantom odors such as cigar smoke, when no one in the house was a smoker, hearing low noises coming from rooms which were empty at the time, and the ever-present feeling that someone was just behind you on the stairs. But one incident stands out for me. I was 13 at the time, and I had gone to bed. A bit of detail is needed here. When you came up the stairs, there was a bathroom directly across the landing, a bedroom off to the right, and to the left was a sitting room of sorts with two bedrooms off of it. My bedroom was one of those. I was lying in bed, and all of a sudden I heard a scream, right in my ear. Literally as though someone is standing right next to me. It was piercing, and sounded like a female voice shrieking in agony. I shot up in bed out of shock. As I am sitting up in bed, I hear the sitting room door by the staircase open and close. I hear nothing else. One thing to note is that the stairs were very old and creaky. You could hear when someone was using them. There were no sounds before or after the door closed. I lay in bed for a few minutes after that, waiting for my heart rate to return to normal. I could not explain the scream. The only thing I could do to ease my mind was to find out whether anyone had come upstairs, even though I knew better. Sure enough, no one had. We lived in that house for 6 more years, but that incident was by far the strangest. To this day, I have no solid explanation. Number 39. Was It a Dream? By Raine. My second experience, I found out years later, was very similar to the Hat Man phenomena. This happened 15 or 16 years ago. I was dating someone who lived in a college town in Texas. I would fly there and visit him for several days, in a row, once a month, when I was off from work. He lived in an old rent house with some roommates. They had lots of parties. I never felt very comfortable in that house myself. There was an eerie vibe to it. One night we had gone out and came back to his house. I fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I awoke and opened my eyes, and as plain as day, there was a man in a black coat and wide-brimmed hat watching me sleep. He was leaning over me so close, I saw a smirk of a smile on his face. He was extremely dark, but solid. I screamed so loud that it woke up everyone in the house. He disappeared, and after giving everyone a heart attack, I swore there was a man staring at me. My eyes were open, and I was awake. Of course, everyone told me I was just dreaming, but I never forgot it. Years later, I found out so many people had seen this dark figure, known as the Hat Man. It was the man I saw that night. I know he does exist, but I don't know why he watches you sleep. I've only seen him that one time. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please hit the subscribe button below, or use the button that will appear on this screen at the end of the video. This way you will be notified of new content. Please let me know what you thought of this video in the comments, and share it with someone you might think might enjoy it. Feel free to follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to try and finish the 100 ghostly tales in smaller doses than the first video. 30 stories in 3 hours was a bit much to expect everyone to get through. I think this video is a very good follow-up, so I will continue to do about 7 stories in a shorter video, until I get to 100. Also, I'm very sorry about this, but I've lost some of the stories, for which I greatly apologize for. If you have submitted a ghost story for this project, and have not yet heard it in the first or second video, if you still want it included, please resend me the story. I would like to include as many stories as possible, and I don't want anyone to feel like I am leaving you out. In the meantime, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.